What are the basics of PTSD is regard to biblical application? I have 50 years into this, 50 years of experience dealing with PTSD and the effects of it. I've thankfully been able to help people in private, and those people have said that you really should make this available to more people. So that's what I'm finally doing, and I hope that you'll join me today as I discuss the basics of PTSD from a biblical perspective. Now, when it comes to biblical perspective of PTSD, I'm not throwing out the science, I'm not throwing out the medical that already knows. This is just to be used in conjunction, and also because as a nurse, a believer in the Lord, somebody who has had complex chronic PTSD because of, as a child, having suffered physical abuse and various other traumas throughout my life, I have an understanding of PTSD, and I also have a history of what God has used to help me understand some of the effects of PTSD, and therefore also to heal by applying what He has showed me and benefiting from it. So that's what we're going to go through today. You can find out signs and symptoms of PTSD and risk factors and some of those general things online. But now I'm going to address the biblical perspective. So trauma, what is trauma, and how does PTSD occur from trauma, and especially thinking about the Bible and God, right? Well, when we think about God and how God at the very beginning of the Bible created man and woman, He made it, and on the seventh day when He looked back at everything that He created, and it was good, right? It was good. And that world was a good world. The things that we experience that create the shock, that create the trauma, that create the terror, that create all these different things that are symptoms and effects of being in trauma, whether it's induced from nature, being in war, something we've done, something's done to us. Maybe it's one time it happened, maybe it's repeated things over years. It all results in these effects. Because why? Because that's not what God intended for us. And so we suffer. And it's like red lights and red alert lights going off in our body when you have a nightmare like that, or you trigger. It's like warning, warning, something's not right, warning, warning. All these things are like lights on the dashboard of a car that are signaling that something's not right within us. When I think about how I came to understand trauma and how I came to understand the effects of it, I'm going to give you one thing, because we're going to deal with the triggers, and I'm going to be showing you some different examples of triggers and telling you about things next week that will really give you an idea, and it will not only help you explain triggers to yourself to give you a great understanding, but also to others who may not have them and wonder why you're still being affected years later from whatever event you had to go through. But here's one thing I will tell you before that week. When you go through something that's traumatic, so basically you're feeling like your life is endangered, or your life of your loved one's endangered, or you've seen, or you've had to take life, or you've seen life being destroyed, you've been seeing things of destruction basically, right? And we're not meant for that. That's why it's so traumatizing to us. That's not what God meant for us. That's why it unsettles us so much. And then what happens is when you have something like that happen, I don't know if you've ever seen, used to see these old like radars, okay, a picture of a radar, and it was like a screen like this, and it was on a pole, and it would turn, like be turning all the way around, trying to just look and pick up anything it could pick up to determine if there's danger. So here's the thing, when you go through trauma, you have all your senses, right? The sense of smell, sight, sound, touch, taste, all these different things. And when you experience your trauma, whatever in these areas you're experiencing, that becomes associated with the trauma, and it's stored into our brains, way down into this place called the amygdala, which stores our emotions. It stores what's happened to us, especially if it has a huge emotional impact. And it's especially stored if there is any fear or associated with fear of person, fear of death, fear of violence. It makes it stored even more strongly. And so even though you may go on your life and you're doing different things, your body has now, because of this stored in your mind and your experience, has now set up a radar, basically. You know, I think about it on the top of my head. You know, my arms are sticking out, but if you could think of like a little sign here, and maybe like the radar, here's my phone going around like deet, 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 deet. You don't hear that, but it's like constantly looking for things. And any of these triggers that I experience, sight, sound, touch, taste, smell, whatever, because if it sees anything that reminds it of that trauma, it starts to go deet, 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 sends the warning sign, warning, 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 and it then sets into motion our responses to that. Whatever responses that we have gotten used to, or whatever responses that it does for us, that's what happens. And so God had to help me to not only heal and deal with the trauma, but also to desensitize the triggers, to validate myself for having the feelings I had, not feel shame for them, not berate myself because, oh, you're still afraid, you know, blah, blah, blah. That was years ago. No, but to validate what occurred at the time, and then to basically move ahead by learning what sort of things triggered me in the senses area, and then God bringing about the healing that was needed to calm those areas, calm those senses, calm, or even give a different understanding perspective that sometimes just took the trigger right away. It just depended, because there's a lot of things that go into play when you've gone through trauma. Every week I'm going to give a little assignment for you. Last week it was, if you've not watched a video, I'd recommend going back and watching it, because I teach you how to make a happy place. And why I did it at the beginning was because as we move through some of these videos, I want you to have that capability of bringing yourself to that happy place, that happy space. And that is based on Philippians 4:8, about whatsoever you think, thinking on these things. Go back, please, watch that one, and then download the Foundations handout I have from last week. If you've not downloaded that, it's on my website, www.betsybohan.com, and I will be putting up more handouts on my website. They're all free. for you to use. And I'll also be putting up some that are like encouragement posters, things that helped me in the past that I think might be able to help you on your journey. So that's all I'm having. I just am trying to keep my videos short because I want you to do what you've been given to do from week to week, because each video will build on the prior video. So what I would like you to do this week, so from last week, it was to find your happy space. I don't know if anybody looked and made one up, but please, in the comments, if you did, please let me know. If you have questions, please let me know. Part of this healing series, I always ask my viewers if they really want to heal, to maybe do some of these things that I ask you to do to promote your healing. It's kind of like when Jesus went to the pool of Bethesda and there was the man there that had been there over 30 years. And he's like, well, do you really want to get healed? And he says, pick up your mat and walk. So we have to enter into it, and we have to do things for ourselves if we truly want to be healed. So this week I'm asking you, some of you may already know the things that have traumatized you. Others may know some, but are starting to think, well, maybe there's been some other events that really affected me. I'm asking that you would go before the Lord and pray to the Lord, and to ask the Lord to reveal to you those things that have really affected you in life, traumatized you, whether it's been something you've done, some natural disaster, something somebody else has done, war, whatever it might be. And then some of the things that perhaps trigger you or set you off in some of your responses. Just make a little list like that. If you have trouble doing it alone, or you're worried about doing it alone because of what it might stir up, please either do it with a counselor, or maybe somebody from church that you trust, or but somebody that you trust, and work with them. Well, until next week, I want to thank you for joining me, and I wish you a wonderful week, a healing week. Until next time, bye, and be blessed.